I call this meeting of the North Liberty Planning Commission to order Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. Roll call.
Ahern.
Here.
Bakke.
Here.
Heisler.
Here.
Keough.
Here.
Staber.
Here.
Vincent.
Here.
Willer.
Here.
All right. Well, we have a request to table item number 3 on our agenda. So I can't move ahead and well, I'll just say, do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to table.
I second that motion to table item 3 on the agenda.
Okay. Excellent. So is this a roll call or is this an all in favor? How do I do that? I'm going to have some procedural questions this evening.
You can, let's do a roll call for this.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. Motion by Patrick, second by Josie. Roll call.
Bakke.
Aye.
Heisler.
Aye.
Keough.
Aye.
Staber.
Aye.
Vincent.
Aye.
Willer.
Aye.
Ahern.
Aye.
And now with that tabled, we need to approve the agenda, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll motion to approve. I'll second. Ahern.
Motion by Patrick, second by Ahern is who I heard. This one we do normally an all in favor. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right, moving to our next agenda item, a request to review a site plan for a new microbrewery.
And apologies for the large packet. Just had to get that out there. I know it's painful.
Like-
It's painful to write.
400 pages? Yep.
Just give or
435?
take a couple hundred.
finished downloading.
Okay,
mine
so
hasn't.
property is currently zoned C1B. Land use is commercial and residential with commercial. Staff's opinion that zoning is consistent with the land use. The code doesn't specifically list microbreweries in the code, but we are fixing that with a new update. It is associated with a restaurant, so I'm comfortable making the interpretation that restaurant/brewery fits in that, but we are fixing that with the proposed update. So here is the site plan. Shows the building kind of opening back onto the pond, which is very nice. We thought it was a pretty well drawn site plan. We did have some comments that they addressed. We still have some outstanding comments. Spoke with the petitioner for the meeting. They don't have any issues with any of the comments that we provided, so we'll ask that those get updated before we send them to City Council. Very nice building, designed by an architect, so it's going to be very nice. Here's the back area opening up onto the pond, so it's going to have a great covered patio with an outdoor space. It's really a great amenity for the Liberty Center pond. Here's just kind of a rendering and just showing some of the materials that they would like to use. No public input was received. We had 2 findings. I'm trying to move a little quicker than I normally do. And we did have, staff does recommend the Planning Commission accept 2 listed findings and forward the site plan to the City Council with a recommendation for approval subject to the 9 conditions listed by city staff. There's a typo in the staff report. I think there was a couple of them because it was long, but we are recommending approval subject to those 9 conditions. Happy to answer any questions. I know the applicant's here as well.
Great. Thanks. Is there an applicant presentation tonight? Excellent.
Good evening. My name's Nick Bettis with Axiom Consultants, 60 East Court Street, Unit 3. I'm just here to answer any questions related to the site and the submittal.
Great. Thanks. We'll call you up if we have any questions. I know there weren't any public comments in the packet, but are there any public comments here tonight? All right. Seeing none, what questions and comments does the commission have?
I don't have any questions. I think it'll be a nice amenity to that area. It reflects some of the architecture that's already happening with some of the buildings, and that open space to the pond will be really nice.
Any other questions or comments from the
I agree.
commission?
Ryan, I do have a question. Do we have anywhere in the code a requirement for food service at a, I mean, I know with the new ordinances that are coming out, is a facility like this required to serve food under that?
Well, I would say if it was strictly just a
Brewery?
manufacturing
Yeah.
facility, it would probably be classified as like an industrial use.
Okay.
So, you know, it wasn't something we asked for, but that was part of their
Okay,
business.
but that's not something that we're necessarily inserting into the new.
No, actually, you could have in a commercial district in the new code, a standalone
Okay,
microbrewery, and
Okay.
it's based upon the number of barrels that you produce per year.
I wasn't able to memorize your new ordinances, so yeah, just out of curiosity, thank you.
Right, and pardon me, I haven't been able to cross-reference everything, but from a amount of parking spaces, any variance from our standard recommendations, or does it meet the standard?
Oh, it exceeds the standard, and even in the new code, even though you'll find that I've reduced some of the parking standards in our code,
Right.
it does specifically say there's nothing in this code that prevents you from providing additional parking, and I think that's necessary because when you try and insert reduced parking minimums, you know, we expect a business to anticipate what their customer needs are going to be, and if, for instance, Tin Roost is very popular and the parking lot's always full, that exceeds our parking standards, and it's a good thing that they did.
And part of the great feature of the pond is that we know there may be extra parking needs. So the fact that they're willing to accept that or meet that
Yeah.
excess is important. So thank you.
And the one thing that is nice about the orientation of the outdoor space is it goes to the northeast and away from the residential properties to the south.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I know we've got a full agenda tonight, so may I have a motion for our recommendation to the city council? And as a reminder, he did mention the 9. Page 21 has a recommended
There we go.
motion if you were
And
Here on the screen.
looking for something.
I move that the planning commission accept the 2 listed findings and forward the site plan to the city council with a recommendation for approval, subject to the 5 conditions listed by city staff.
That was a typo, so it's actually 9.
Yeah, it's 9.
It's 9. That's what I was wondering about that when I was saying 5.
And
so
I'll put them up on the board here or the screen as we're going
Okay.
through 'em.
I second that motion.
Great, are we good with the 9
Need to reread.
that went through with the motion? Okay, great. All right, motion by Dave, second by Josie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Heisler,
Aye.
Keo,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Staber.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. To our next item, a request to review a site plan for a new Taco Bell. Staff presentation.
Okay, so this is literally across the street from the brewery. It's currently zoned C2A. Land use map designation is commercial, so the zoning is consistent. Use and restaurants are listed as permitted use in the C2A district, so no issues there. Only occupies a little over half the site. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with the western portion of the property, but here's how the site lays out. It does have pedestrian connections to both the Penn Street path and the Liberty Way sidewalk. It's a landscaping plan, but they will have berming, which is required by code adjacent to those streets to screen the public view of the parking lot. Here's elevations of it, so a high degree of masonry and some accent panels, so it's a nice looking Taco Bell, and so appreciative of our design standards because they do work. They do have an outdoor space adjacent to the Penn Street trail there. Corner architectural piece. Here's exiting the site on Liberty Way and a view from the parking lot. No public input was received. We did have 2 findings similar to the previous request. We do have, the staff recommends planning commission accept the 2 listed findings and forward the site plan to city council with a recommendation for approval of subject to 1 condition, and that was just for the sidewalk crossing Liberty Way. And I know the applicant is here, in case you have
Great.
any questions.
Excellent. Is there an applicant presentation? Okay, Great, thank you. Any public comment from tonight? Great, I didn't see any in the packet, and Ryan, you mentioned there wasn't any. Questions, comments from the commission?
So is this Taco Bell gonna stick out like a sore thumb next to these other places?
I don't
A
think
nice
so.
brewery.
No, I don't think so, just because of the color of the masonry they use. So it's kind of that darkish, kind of gray masonry. So, you know, it's a different architectural style, but I think it's actually going to blend in pretty nice.
Is there any concern with the increase in traffic now on that Liberty Way? Because you can't access, it looks like you can't access the Taco Bell or the car wash. I know the car wash can't, unless you go on Liberty Way. Is there any concern with traffic and having the daycare at the end with Jones?
I'd say no. I mean, right now there's basically no traffic on that street.
Correct,
So,
yeah.
This is, we really don't have any concerns.
Okay.
The good news is Liberty Way accesses both Penn and Jones. And we'll have we got a traffic signal at Jones and Penn Street, so people can always come in that way.
And their queue up is fairly a distance away from the entrance. So
Oh, got
if
it.
there
Okay.
happens to be, as we I think have all seen at restaurants recently, there are extremely large queues at a number of them. But I do appreciate that they could actually utilize some of the parking space to queue up additional cars if necessary. So I'm comfortable with that. But I would hate to see queuing up onto the street. But I think this helps eliminate that.
One clarification I didn't see, but I'm assuming by the size of it, this is primarily preparation, pickup, carry out. Doesn't look like there's much room for any dining at all.
Yeah, I think there's a small amount, but I think it's primarily the kind of that quick service.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see more and more of.
That's similar to the one in Coralville, right? Is Coralville, do they have, is that a small one? I don't really know.
I assume that footprint is bigger than this one, but probably not by a lot.
I suspect you're right.
Not shocking, none of my friends were excited about the ordinance changes, but when I said there was a Taco Bell in here,
Yeah.
they were pumped.
Seems to be the same thing in my family. So
They were so excited. Sorry, I know the ordinance wasn't as exciting to them. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Does Liberty Way have any markings on the streets? Is that just will there be any markings, like, I don't know, side street like this? I don't know. Seems kind of like a tight one.
Like a
Tight.
center
Like, is there
line?
parking allowed, you mean, or
Well, on the
dividers?
so I take my kid to daycare there, and there's like a semi that parks there all the time when they deliver food. And it's just, it kind of seems like it's a tight street. I was curious if it's the same size as all
Yeah,
the other
it's a
streets.
standard local road, so we typically do not use pavement markings for local roads, and it's standard width, 29 foot, so it's a fairly wide road.
Okay.
Which does allow for parking.
We've definitely seen a lot of development on that road last year, so that space should be almost full.
there's a
Along Penn.
couple more parcels to the west there, and I'm currently talking to the property owners about development of those as well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's 20 years in the making too, all at once.
I think it's because of me, but
Yeah, we'll let Ryan take credit for that. Yeah, there you go.
All right, any other questions or comments from the commission?
So this is the one that only has 2 findings from the,
in one condition.
yeah. So I move that the planning commission accept the 2 listed findings and forward the site plan to the city council with a recommendation for approval subject to the 1 condition listed by city staff.
I'll second.
Great, motion by Josie, second by Ahern. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Ahern,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Keo,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Abkey,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Staber.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Site crashed.
Next item, yeah, mine crashed and had to reload. A public hearing for a zoning code amendment, and I have a procedural question again before you get started, Ryan. We had staff recommended or has an amendment request. Is that something we review now or we do after the staff presentation? How does that work?
After.
After.
It's a little unusual to amend anything.
Okay.
But to do it this way, we have a public hearing that you see what's in the packet, okay? And then staff has some recommendations for suggested amendments to what's already in the packet.
Okay.
And so we would suggest or request consideration of a motion to amend in accordance with those suggested amendments. And then ultimately, I anticipate we'd request a recommendation for approval with the amendments as proposed, as put forward.
Great.
Substantively not much different than including them as a condition, but
Okay.
Just to clarify that those are amendments to what's in there rather than conditions for
Great.
recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here all night, so.
Excellent. Well, my script is 3 pages long
Yeah.
tonight with things to do. I'm earning my pay. Ryan said he's going to double it, which is 0 for the record, just so everyone knows. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Staff presentation.
All right, so yeah, this is the main event, and I figure let's just go through this page by page by page.
Can you
Clean and
just
strike
read
through.
it, please?
Yes.
Just,
Yes.
slowly,
Read all of it.
not fast.
Yes.
Well, and for the record, this is the kind of stuff I like to read professionally. But when it came to my fun time, I
Yeah.
thought, you know what, this is the limit. But my site keeps crashing, so we do need to go through it a little bit slowly to make sure we all
Here, we can
see
share
it
too.
again.
I just great.
Like,
Get in
kinda-
there again.
I just want to kind of describe the effort in kind of groups. I've probably been working on this since I got here and doing little parts at a time, and it grows and grows a little bit bigger. Grant and I kind of agreed to kind of get at the city code kind of one bite at a time, but you can tell I'm a pretty big eater, so this is a pretty big bite here, obviously. So the main part of it was this use table, uses defined, and use standards. They call it the old way of zoning ordinances. You'd have a zoning district, you'd have all of those uses listed in that district, and then you flip to the next district, all of the uses would be listed in that district. And the challenge becomes fixing them in one area, and sometimes you'll just leave one alone and fix it over here and just leave it here. What we do is created this one use table where you can just look at a use and see exactly where it's permitted in all kinds of districts. Much more user friendly, I would find. And then as you go to the next section, what it does is define all of those uses. I found that we didn't have a definition for a lot of the uses in our code, and that sometimes can be dangerous, not always, but sometimes people get creative on what they call certain use. What we've done is defined every single use. And then as part of that, we applied use standards if we felt they were necessary. Another thing I found is we had one section that had use standards. There's probably about 5 or 6 of them. There weren't very many, several more. Some of them are just like an office. You don't really need any use standards. You just follow regular codes. Some are a little bit more involved, like bed and breakfast or something like that, when you start laying out certain rules. So you'll find that. When we compartmentalize it like this, it's much easier to fix, much easier to tweak as we go down and as things modernize and things change, right? Thing that changed for us was a micro fulfillment center. And this happened, boom, right during the pandemic. And I would say caught flat-footed, but like the GoPuff that went into the Family Video is technically retail because consumers buy, but they just get it delivered. That could, it may not, but it could dramatically change the retail landscape if we became all micro fulfillment centers as retail. And so I've regulated that use primarily as a conditional use, just so we can look at it. Otherwise, it can be an industrial use. It may not be that big of a deal. It just depends on how big the operation is. And it's like, well, what if you put an Amazon in the middle of a retail corridor? It'd look kind of weird. The other thing we dealt with was antiquated nomenclature, right? There's a lot of uses in there that are just very, very old, like howitzer manufacturing's in there and all kinds of fun things. And taverns, those things. I don't know who's lately said I'm going down to the tavern, but sometimes we've got confusing nomenclature, like automotive repair, minor and major is defined. But if you go to C2 district, it says you can do minor, and it's called something entirely different. You go to the I1 district, it says you can do basically body work, which is not defined anywhere. If you go to a different section of the code, it says if you are a dealership in C2A, you can actually do heavy automobile repair. So we've tried to eliminate all of those confusing things. And again, just trying to make it more user-friendly. Also revise the requirements for site plan approval. Right now, what we're requiring developers to do is to provide a full engineered site plan. I know Kevin likes this, but we're asking somebody to spend a lot of money up front to potentially have somebody say no. It's not as bad in a site plan like a Taco Bell or something like a brewery, because we're going to ensure that they meet all requirements, and Grant and I are going to say, listen, you're pretty much compelled to approve this if it meets all the codes. Where it gets a little dangerous is when you do a PAD. PADs require that full site plan, and I know for Vintage Estates, they probably spent around $50,000 for their engineering site plan. That could have easily been turned down. What we've done is split that into preliminary site plan approval and construction site plan approval. The preliminary site plan approval still comes before you and the city council. It just doesn't require the full engineering detail like the stormwater calcs and how it's going to drain. We're still going to show the general arrangement of land uses and how things are organized in parking calcs, architectural renderings and stuff like that. But when that gets approved, then they come in for their construction plan approval, and that gets approved administratively by city staff. And I think that's a much better approach to do this. And I've talked about this for a while, revised off-street parking standards and landscape standards. By and large, I took two more recent parking ordinances that were approved, Davenport, Cedar Rapids. And I thought Davenport was a little too not restrictive, and Cedar Rapids is a little restrictive, so I kind of tried to come in the middle a little bit, what I thought was reasonable. Renting housing regulations. I think rental housing should be regulated. I don't think it should be regulated in the zoning code. So I know those were recent updates, but what we are going to do is just take whatever regulations that are in the zoning ordinance and put them in the housing code, which already exist. Right? I'm of the opinion that a single family dwelling is a use, not whether it's rented or not. And so we're moving those out of the zoning ordinance. We'll put them in the housing ordinance. Design standards. So took a lot of the design standards in currently 169.12 and 13, kind of ended up kind of at the end of the code, and it's an easy way to fix things, just because you can kind of pile it on the end there, and it's pretty easy. So I've taken some of those things that apply to like landscaping and put them in the landscape ordinance. Taken the sign regulations and put them in the sign ordinance. We did have in the sign ordinance that ground signs were preferred. Pole signs could be allowed if approved by council. I've just taken the liberty to saying pole signs are prohibited, and that's not to mean the small residential ground sign with the on the two posts. That's allowed, and that's defined as a ground sign. But I think we've come so far as a community that we should expect our businesses and people that are putting signs to put a nice monument sign in, and I've put a diagram of what that looks like. I'm kind of based it upon what I think is aesthetically pleasing in the city of North Liberty. It gives you an option of doing kind of 2 columns or a single column, or like I mentioned, that residential style sign. And zoning district changes. So I'm proposing to eliminate RM4 and RM6. We currently don't have any properties that are zoned RM4. We've got one that's zoned RM6. It's underutilized. It doesn't make sense to do multifamily at that type of density. So I'm proposing to eliminate those 2 districts and just upzone the one property we'll get to RM8. The other one was the RSO district. It is kind of written like an overlay, but it wasn't. And the weird part is the RSO is listed as a standalone district, but it doesn't have any dimensional standards. When I talk about dimensional standards, I mean building height, setbacks, or things like that. So what I've done is created that as a overlay district, and we are changing the one that has RSO currently to an overlay district. And I crossed over the floodplain overlay district. This was one of the more strange ones, and I couldn't figure out. We currently have requirements for floodplain development, and you're required to get a permit if you're in the floodplain. But we had this entirely separate section called the floodplain overlay district, which isn't even mapped on our zoning map. I don't believe it's ever been utilized. It still kind of baffles me a little bit. It just didn't make a lot of sense. So I'm proposing just to delete that entirely. What we will do is if we want to strengthen our floodplain development permit, we'll do it with the floodplain development permit process. So that's what I'm proposing. And this isn't going to be perfect. Every time I read this thing, I found a typo or a number out of place. So when you do big efforts like this, I'm committed that I'm going to be back in front of you saying, boy, I missed that, or I didn't think about that. That's really part of a normal process of doing something big like this. I didn't receive any input in this process, but I've talked to a lot of people over this past year and a half about kind of bouncing ideas. I know these guys are probably sick of me asking questions about, just bouncing ideas about how to change, what's more business friendly. And Ryan Heyer and I talk a lot about what is economic development in the city and kind of making this process a little bit more easy to understand, but still protecting what we're trying to achieve in the city. I mean, that is in part economic development from our perspective. These are the last minute changes that I threw out. And Mr. Willer had pointed out a few, and I appreciate that with his background in healthcare design. And partially some input that we received from the University of Iowa. So we are asking that section 168.06, table 168.06, be amended to allow the use healthcare institution as a permitted use in the P district. And again, that was a request from the university. And amend, this is in the design standards, but 168.07 2B3BV by increasing the maximum building size to 6,000 square feet. This is for an agricultural experience. Dean and Katie Colony had sent me a rendering of something they were looking for when we had a maximum 5,000 square foot, and I thought that was still going to be okay, but I double checked the definition for floor area, and it includes unenclosed porches that are covered by a roof. And so what I thought an easy fix would be to just increase that size to 6,000 feet. We wouldn't have any issues with that. And last, this was the parking standard that we talked about. Change the minimum required vehicle spaces for healthcare to 1 per 3 beds, 1 per 200 square feet of gross floor area. That should be of office and administrative area, and also medical dental to 1 per 350 square feet gross floor area. I don't know if we want me to pause there and see if you guys want to take this up as an amendment.
Do I have to do public comment? And
Yes, so we're going to
Yep.
need to do public comment first, just procedurally.
Yep.
Well, you guys get to do what you want to do, but that's the right way to do it.
Great.
Well,
then let's not do it that way.
Right.
Just
You would want to do have an opportunity for public comment.
Yep.
And then you're going to want to have open up for discussion. And then while you're having a discussion, you're going
That's
to
the time.
someone will move to amend to or move to recommend amendment of the ordinance to incorporate the staff's suggested amendments is probably the best way to recap those
Okay.
things.
So then it
so-
probably makes sense for me to get through my findings
yes.
and recommendations.
Yep.
Thank you, Aaron.
That'll be a roll call and then a roll call vote on the final thing. Sorry.
Okay, roll
Thank
call
you
on
for
that.
your time.
One additional question. If we believe we have if I'm employed by the university, at what point would we be recommended to recuse ourselves?
If you
Because
have
there's only a small portion of it.
So two answers for that. One, if you have any sort of pecuniary interest where you are going to be richly rewarded for approving or not approving this, then I would recommend that you abstain.
Okay.
The other one is if you feel like you cannot possibly be impartial because you love or hate the university so much, and you have reasons for that you can feel like you can articulate. I won't make you do it on camera, but those would be the reasons that you could abstain. But generally, if you're not going to get money from this project to the tune of I think $500 a month so $6,000 in a year, it's not technically going to be a pecuniary conflict of interest, but Who knows what secrets the heart hides? You can
Okay,
decide that for
okay.
yourself.
Thank
Is that responsive, Josie?
Yeah, I specifically am working with our construction standards on the site, so I think I will recuse myself
Sure.
just out of a caution. Yep.
I work at the university, but I'm not making any additional money at all.
They didn't offer to double or triple your salary.
Right? Just what I make from this. Okay, so you're going to continue with your presentation, and then we'll do public. Great.
Okay, so we do have one finding. The proposed ordinance would modernize the zoning code, make it more user-friendly, and revise outdated and/or antiquated language. Staff recommends the planning commission accept the one listed finding and forward the ordinance with recommendations for approval subject to the one condition. And the one condition relates to the, I apologize for failing to mention this, we have 4 parcels in the city that are currently zoned C3. So we are basically reimagining what the C3 district is going to become. It is now what we call a higher intensity commercial use, and it would allow some uses that would conflict with kind of the broader vision, and this is over by the 4 parcels over by the Green State Credit Union. And there was a broader vision about limiting certain uses like outdoor automobile dealerships and things like that. So what we did is just limited or excluded those uses from the C3 district on this certain parcel to kind of fit more with that vision that was previously approved.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You said there was no public comment in the packet. Any public comment here tonight? No? You don't want to comment on it? Come on. All right. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for discussion, and I will. Actually, Ryan, could you put the amendments back on the screen for the time being? All right, I'm going to open up for discussion. And as a reminder, we are being asked to consider these amendments, and we would need to have a motion on that first.
Individually or
No.
collectively?
I think is one, right?
You could do
do it
one
as one?
motion for
Okay.
all of everything you see here,
Okay, great.
if you so choose.
So if someone chooses to do that, I will. That would now be a good time, probably.
I don't know if we have discussion before we do this, but I was just going to suggest they all seem reasonable. Making the healthcare institution as permitted in the P district seemed absolutely reasonable.
I want to ask that you have a motion to amend first. They get second,
Okay.
then you discuss whether it's a good idea or
Okay.
not,
Okay,
Fair
great.
enough.
and then you can vote up or down on that amendment, on the motion to amend. Is that okay?
I can do that.
That's fine with me.
Well, then I will make a motion for all 3 recommended last-minute changes here to be incorporated into the amendment that we're discussing.
I'll second. We'll both second.
All right, I'll choose one. Motion by Heisler, second by Willer. Any discussion? So this is where we can discuss these things, right? Specifically about this. Okay.
I didn't see anything controversial in this. These seemed really, like you were just saying, really not basic, but opportune. Like we should make these changes. Did the fellow commissioners think the same thing?
Yeah, I think this is all pretty straightforward and obviously has had a lot of thought put into it. And I haven't seen anything that, and I actually looked at it kind of relative to Cedar Rapids, some other places I've worked, and this is all, this all just makes a lot of sense. And I inherently look at, any type of code, especially when Ryan sends me anything that long, but I tend to think of code as just onerous on its face. But there is nothing, this actually really kind of streamlines things and will make life better for us, for developers, for North Liberty denizens, and I'm looking forward to it.
And I want to thank you, Dave, for the work that you did and using your expertise.
You're welcome. That's why. So, yeah, I think those things are great. No,
Great.
but I do like the streamlined look at the codes. Having dealt with codes for so long in different cities and in different states, you're never sure if you're following them correctly. And you have you waste so much time going back and forth, cross-referencing, that I think this will make it a lot easier for developers.
I felt like it was kind of bringing them more up to date, more of the current way they're structured to easier. And I always look at things when you're revising because, some of us work for employers who have been here for 150 years. And so the why change it? And is it controversial? And who am I going to upset if I support it? But reading it all, it made sense. And it just felt like a lot of cleanup. So the Herculean effort is noticed, Ryan. I can't tell you how many times I thought, God, I'm glad I didn't have to do this.
Yeah.
But I did
Yeah.
note that it didn't I didn't really find anything controversial.
No, I mean, largely it was a reorganization, and Grant and I talked that we think that there was this one template that everybody copied, right? And then you just tend to update and edit this one copy, and so it just really it started from a reorg. But I neglected to thank Grant. Grant really rolled up his sleeves and went on this journey with me. And I mean, again, it's a lot to read, and we'd send over drafts, and I mean, he would pour through them and have edits, and so it really took a commitment on his part. So thank you, Grant.
Awesome. Well, we do have that motion on the table that I
I
want
thought that's what we were discussing
Yeah.
only, but
You
Yeah.
are. You can just take time to thank me more if you want, but you would need a roll call once you're done discussing this.
Yep. So if we have does anyone have more discussion on these amendments, this specific amendment? Okay, then we'll do roll call.
Staber,
aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Ahern.
Aye.
Keo.
Okay, so now we can discuss the rest of the code. And we would, again, later need a motion that includes these amendments, right? Or we've already done that.
It's amended.
Okay, great.
right, You're just, now you would want to have a motion to recommend approval, then and discuss it as amended.
Got it, as amended. I had a question about the site plan versus the construction plan. So the construction plan, I'm thinking of all of the pages that I just really never understand, right? That those are going to be exactly how the water comes out. And like, I think we have renderings for lights. Like, I know everything about those lights now,
Yeah.
but that stuff would not be included in a preliminary.
Only, the stuff that we would include is the stuff you care about,
Okay.
right? How's the site laid out? How's the architectural building look?
And just to clarify, they're still required to meet these standards, right? That are set forth in the code, and our engineer and our internal team go over those in the construction plan review process, which is far more technical, right? And goes over the engineered plans. So
And it still allows for, I know, Ryan, you can use your professional judgment in some of these things if they change. Would
Yeah,
it still allow for that?
Yeah, so the previous code actually had some pretty vague statement that gave me a pretty big magic wand. And I'm not a big fan of that because it's not very predictable, right? And so I could be having a bad day and say, no, this is a major amendment, or having a good day and say, yeah, it's fine. What I've done is create a chart in here that says, this is what a minor amendment is, and if you meet this standard, I can approve it administratively. If it's major, it's this. Things like, decrease setbacks by a certain amount, increasing your building height, increasing your density by a certain, and it's very predictable, right? Like Dave, you said, you look at codes and you can look at this and say, okay, I'm either or I'm not. So I've kind of refined that.
Great. And then I had another question about the rental code. How can you, teach me, because I never knew. How is the housing code updated? How would rental rules get into the housing code?
So you don't have purview over the housing code because you look at zoning.
Yes.
And so what we will do is insert those into the council packet for their amendment. So the housing code is already in chapter 146. The building department administers the entire housing code with no input from us. We don't even do any reviews. So I did talk to Tom Palmer and said, this should all be, that's typically what standard practice is for municipalities. I looked around locally and it's in your housing code. And so we would just take those relevant language out of the zoning ordinance and revise, just like we've done the zoning ordinance, the housing code.
And there's no timing issue with it not having a home? Okay, great. I also appreciated your Three Little Bears approach of finding too constrictive, not restrictive enough, and then finding us in the middle for some of these parking things. Thank you. And can you remind me what the lone RM6 is?
It's the, if you go up Front Street, it's just north of Penn, you know, the big Victorian home.
Oh, yeah.
There's a private street called Jarrow Way, and there's a bunch of duplex condos on there. That's the only parcel in the city that's owned RM6.
Okay.
So I did, and I did speak with all these property owners, and no objections from any of them.
Great. Thank you. Those are all my questions. If anyone else has other questions or comments.
Nope.
So it looks like a suggested motion is up on the screen. And as a reminder, we did amend it. So Grant has used the word as amended a few times.
Can't read it. I can't.
Get it where I can actually get on my.
And this is not a site plan that you're forwarding on. It's a,
There's another typo. Sorry about that.
right, for the
The ordinance.
ordinance as amended.
You had a long week. It's okay.
It's been a long week.
So there is a recommendation on page 87 of our document that lists the condition as well. At least I think 87 is what we want for that recommendation. It's right before the ordinance starts.
I can get to those and speak to those in a second here.
The finding is the Liberty Executive Square restrictions.
Almost there. Got it. Thank you. Okay, so this is for the Liberty Executive Square properties. And it says the following uses within Liberty, the villas at Liberty Executive Square, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's those 4 parcels I referenced. The following uses would be prohibited: heavy retail establishment, enclosed self-storage facility, outdoor self-storage facility, and vehicle dealership, new or used. Outdoor self-storage is like your mini storage. Enclosed self-storage is same thing, but just all internal. Heavy retail is more like a Lowe's or a Home Depot or something like that, that may have like an outdoor greenhouse or something like that. And a vehicle dealership, obvious, would be like a Jungie or something like that.
And this condition's necessary because those are C3, and C3 is
Yeah, C3 previous or currently was called Concept Commercial District, and it had a very limited number of uses that you could do in it. And I think it fit into this grand vision of kind of the Green State and the Geico and the office type development that would be compatible with those developments. So we still feel that the newly envisioned C3 district would be compatible. It's just those 4 uses that would have been out of character in that area. And they probably wouldn't have been a good location for, you know, a big box retail anyway.
Did I see C3 you said it's turning into industrial park?
It's called
Is that what
it's called higher intensity commercial use.
Okay.
And so these are the types of commercial districts that you would expect to be next to the interstate. So I could see this as kind of our Kansas Avenue corridor district being developed with kind of bigger box retail, those types of uses. I mean, the retail environment doesn't change drastically, but those, you know, that people could get access to them via the highway.
Thank you.
And I did create a new district called Industrial Park. That is more of, I would characterize that as, and we don't have any properties that are zoned that. I have kind of a vision for where it might be, but allows for some lighter industrial uses that you can do as long as they're done inside of a building. And I think that allows for a lot more flexibility and adaptability as kind of, it changes to, the commercial industrial environment happen.
Thanks. All right, any more discussion? Okay. May I have a motion about this amended ordinance?
I think I can pull this off. I'll move that the Planning Commission accept the listed finding and forward the ordinance amending several chapters of the zoning code as amended to the City Council with a recommendation for approval subject to the following condition: that the following uses be prohibited within the Villas at Liberty Executive Square, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, heavy retail establishment, enclosed self-storage facility, outdoor self-storage facility, and vehicle dealership, new and used.
Bravo.
I'll second.
Great. Motion by Ahern, second by Stabler. Wait, I'll call you
Close.
Patrick. Stabler. My
No
bad.
L.
Second by Patrick.
There we go.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Willer,
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
Keo,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Heisler.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next, we have a comprehensive plan amendment.
So this again is the city North, a request City of North Liberty. And this is dealing with the UI HC property. And at first glance, we were thinking that would be good to be zone C3. But again, correspondence from the university thought that, and they had no objection to the C3 district, but perhaps a P district would be more appropriate. Grant and I chatted this morning, and actually we agree with them. And I mentioned in the packet that because they are a state agency, we have very little control over them with respect to zoning. And so it's not like this changes their ability to do much with the property, because they could pretty much do it anyway. Exceptions are if they're, tying into our storm sewer, right? We need to make sure that we have capacity and things like that. But it's able to look at a zoning map in CP and you know that it's a publicly owned entity there. I think all of our schools, primary and secondary, are zone P. So staff is asking, again, a last minute change to amend the future land use map for the entire UIHC property to public. And no input received. We had 2 findings. And with that amendment, staff recommends you accept the 2 listed findings and forward the comprehensive plan amendment to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
All right, thank you. Any public comment? All right, I'm going to open it up for discussion. Staff has requested we look at this amendment. He's crashing on me.
Yeah.
All right, I've read it multiple times.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one.
I just like looking at it sometimes.
I didn't see anything controversial with this recommendation, did you? It seemed rather benign.
Yeah.
I did have a question about the amendment. Can you go to the next part where you have your findings?
I did.
Okay, those
change
were updated. Great.
I did update them. Yeah,
That was my
assuming
question.
you
Okay.
make the amendment.
Great. All right, thank you. You can go back to the amendment. Thanks.
So we don't have much to say about the height and area restrictions, but what are they in a P district, in a public district?
I don't know if I understand the question.
The university is their state agency and they're going to do what they want to do, but and we can't enforce the zoning on that if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, so I think if I may, I'm sorry, Chair. The best reason to do this is just for notice to the public, for people that own the property or own property adjacent to it or interested in buying property. It lets them know that this property is owned by an entity that's not going to be subject to these standards. So that there might not be the height restrictions or whatever. Now, we can put design standards in our code, but they serve as recommendations generally for state and federal agencies. We can't tell the post office how many stories they can build. We can ask very nicely, and usually they're going to comply. But the basis of our those standards, whatever standards we might have, they are requests, not requirements at that level. And then we can, if we feel that the agency is being unreasonable to the detriment of the city, there could be a mechanism to take them to court and lose or not. Who knows how that would go? That would go. But the city's zoning power is a police power, which is granted to it by the state. And so, generally, when you fight, if you have a fight, they have to be really going against the spirit of what you're trying to do in order to prevail. So it's just really serves as a notice function. So just so you know, this is a school. They're going to be doing what they do. Or this is going to be a hospital. FYI. So that's it's not impossible to have some sort of challenge to those things, but the courts will balance the relative interests of the state versus the city, and the city is usually found wanting in that case. So the cities usually don't prevail.
Yeah. Okay.
And I apologize for taking your podium there.
Could not have said that better.
Thanks for that clarification,
So
because
that being said, we think it's a useful change designation, so someone doesn't look at the property next door and say, "Oh, C3, I know what that's going to be. That's going to be a big bucks." No,
Yeah.
no, not exactly. Right. And that's the
I got it.
basis.
I can do it.
yeah,
I can
I'm
do it.
one of the 49 homeowners just west of the property, and everybody that I've talked to in the neighborhood is scared to death of what's going to happen there, because it's like, I mean, it is change, and it's a good change for everybody. You know, it's good for the city. I mean, although they don't pay taxes, there's going to be so much generated around the site and around the community. And, you know, residents buying houses, commercial property, everything. So I think it's fantastic. It'll just be interesting to see how it develops there by Jones Boulevard.
The motion is part of discussion, correct? Or
We're still discussing. I haven't had any
All right, so
motion
you
yet.
have to, in this instance, you're going to ask for the motion, correct? It's not,
I can. May I have a motion to?
I'm not asking you to do it. I'm wondering if we, I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to make sure I understood.
It's okay. I have a lot of notes
We were waiting on.
on how to run this, and I don't really know. So I'm just.
You're doing fine.
Yeah, it's going fine, right? It's fine.
I
These
think
are like the
at
place
this
to
point,
be.
I think we would need a motion and a motion on the amendment.
Yes, I do need, well, I would like a motion on the amendment.
I'll kick that in for you here. I'll go ahead and give a motion for this current last minute change to amend the future land use map for the designation to be switched to public for the UIHC project.
And I'll second that.
Is that you, Dave?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Motion by Heisler, second by Willer. Roll call?
Throw me for a loop when I don't have it already scripted.
Ah.
Baffke,
Abstain.
Staber,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Keo,
Aye.
Ahern.
Aye.
Okay, so now that's been amended and the recommendation is up on the screen. Can you go back to the findings? Did you have the findings up there?
Sure do.
Okay, great. And those do reflect the public. Great. Thank you. And now we can have more discussion. Also, we can have a motion for this comprehensive plan amendment.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Might I suggest a motion, second it, and then have discussion?
Great.
Would that,
Sure.
I will gladly accept your recommendation there. So may I have a motion?
I'll move that the planning commission accept the two listed findings and forward the comprehensive plan amendment to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
I'll second.
All right. All right, motion by Ahern, second by Staber. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Ahern,
Aye.
Batke,
Abstain.
Staber,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Keo.
Aye. Okay, our next agenda item is a public hearing for zoning map amendments with also a request. So go for it.
Final one. We're almost there. So, 3 requests that are companion with the zoning ordinance amendment. Again, sorry for the late last minute change here, but the UIHC property currently zoned C2A and RM8. This is the Jero A properties, the only properties in the city that are zoned RM6. And this is the, another typo there, I apologize, the RSO property that's owned by Mr. Peoples. It's currently zoned RSO. So let's see here. No public inputs received. Again, I spoke to all the applicants. We are asking that now that we've done all of these other amendments, that the UIHC property be amended to the public use district. We do have 2 findings. They'd be consistent with the comprehensive plan. They would facilitate amendments to the proposed ordinance. And then we recommend that the planning commission accept 2 listed findings and forward the zoning map amendments to the city council with a recommendation for approval. And I'll go back to there and step aside.
Okay, any public comments? Great. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions and comments from the commission. The amendment on the screen there just follows kind of everything we've been doing so far this evening. So it just is the final way to stitch it up. So may I have a motion on that amendment or proposed amendment?
I'll move to amend the UIHC property to the P Public Use District.
I'll second.
Great. Motion by Heisler, second by Ahern. Roll call?
Keo.
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Batke,
Abstain.
Heisler,
Aye.
Great, motion passes. Now we can look at the zoning map amendment as a whole, now that it's been
Well,
amended.
3, right? Yeah.
Yep. Any questions or comments about the zoning map amendment as a whole?
Again, just to
It's common sense cleanup, it seems.
Mhm.
and there'll be more. Like I think I changed the name for the manufactured housing park, so I'll bring that one back and change that. So there'll be more coming.
So the timing of the UIHC one made sense since we were doing everything else. Is that how the RM6 and the RSO came about as well?
Really just came about when I was reorganizing. And so when I was reorganizing the zoning districts, I had it as, residential, commercial, industrial, and then I had what I call special purpose districts. And that's where I put the ID, interim development district, PAD, and then this district, and then the P district, just because they're kind of out there on their own. So a lot of this was that I was already moving it and changing it, so I just decided now is a good time to make that change.
And you spoke to those landowners
I spoke to all of them.
and no
Yep,
disagreement? Okay, thank you.
correct.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? All right, may I have a motion regarding the, this change to zoning request?
I'll move that the planning commission accept the two listed findings and forward the zoning map amendments to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
All right. Motion by Ahern, second by Heisler. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Bathke,
Abstain.
Heisler,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Keo,
Aye.
Vincent.
Aye.
All right. May I have a motion to approve the previous minute? Oh, motion passes. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to say that. Now may I have a motion to approve the previous minute?
I'll make a motion to approve the previous minutes.
And I second that.
Motion by Willer, second by Bathke. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any old business? Any new business now that we put a year's worth of work in a night?
Yeah, you don't get paid by the page, do you, Ryan? I just want
Unfortunately
to
not.
clarify.
Uh,
Neither do we.
All right, new business.
No, he gets paid as how often the iPad crashes.
Oh,
Right.
you're
We made a lot
rated
of money
in
tonight.
Making money.
so long. All
Part
right,
of my
new business.
grand scheme to, yeah, well.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll mention is I included a email from newly elected Mayor Hoffman in your packet. So just he was welcoming you and appreciative of all your work. And we actually chatted today about that. So I'm sure he'll be here soon to thank you himself.
Is that purposefully timed with this meeting?
It may have been.
Okay.
You guys probably all saw in the email as well, I inquired about the possibility of
Oh, yeah.
virtual meetings with things seeming a little unstable. So I just wanted to get that on the conversation. And you said you would look into it.
Yes. I'll be in.
Who knows what next month even is going to look
I-
like. So I just
I
wanted to
think
bring
we
it
just
up.
continue to be nimble and react. I mean, at this point, I think we'd love to stay in person. We'll just continue to monitor the situation.
All right. If there isn't anything else, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion by Staber, second by Willer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for keeping the packet up there.